You ever feel like your own brain is holding you hostage? Like you know a thought is irrational, but you still can't stop checking the stove or replaying that horrific what-if scenario in your head? If you have OCD, you know that feeling all too well. Maybe you hide it well. Maybe people around you have no clue that behind your polite smile, there's a war raging. You versus your own thoughts. It's exhausting, isn't it? And you're wondering, why me? Why do I have to deal with this nonsense? I'm going to tell you something that might sound strange. Your OCD exists for a reason. It's not a random glitch or a punishment from the universe. In a twisted way, it's your mind's misguided attempt to protect you. I get it. It sure doesn't feel like protection when you're sweating over whether you locked the door for the 5th time. It feels like torture. But stick with me. Your brain isn't trying to torture you. It's trying to tell you something, in the only way it knows how. Think of OCD as an overprotective bodyguard who's gone a little nuts. It's constantly yelling, "Watch out," at every possible danger, even the ones that aren't real. It means well. It wants to keep you safe, but it sucks at its job. Instead of saving you, it traps you. So why would your own mind do this to you? Why would it create terrifying thoughts or urge you to do weird rituals just to feel okay for a minute? To answer that, we need to dive into the deep end of psychology, specifically Carl Jung's ideas about the mind. Jung viewed our psyche as having different parts, some that we're aware of, and some that we repress or hide. He had a name for the collection of all those hidden, denied parts of ourselves. He called it the shadow. The shadow is basically all the stuff you don't want to admit is part of you. Your anger, your selfish impulses, your forbidden desires, your pain. Everything you push down because it doesn't fit the image of who you think you should be. Guess where that stuff lives? In your unconscious mind, as your shadow. Here's the thing. Just because you ignore something doesn't mean it disappears. In fact, the more you shove things into the dark, the more power they gain. They become these little psychological gremlins. And one day, they crawl out of the dark and, well, they might look a lot like OCD. Ever notice how OCD thoughts are often the opposite of what you'd ever want to think or do? The kindest people get violent, intrusive images. The most honest people get plagued by "what if I lied" thoughts. The most faithful partners get random sexual doubts or bizarre impulses. That's the shadow at work. Your mind is basically saying, "Hey, here's this awful thing. Is it yours? Could it be you?" And you, being a decent person, freak out. "No, no, no, I'd never do that." That freak out is exactly the point. Your shadow just wants to be acknowledged, but you're slamming the door on it. And OCD steps in as the messenger. But OCD isn't just the shadow playing tricks. Jung also talked about complexes, little clusters of emotion and memory that form in us, usually from childhood or strong experiences. Think of a complex like a sore spot in your psyche. Press it, and ouch. If you grew up with chaotic parents, maybe you have a complex about control and safety. So as an adult, you feel an overwhelming need to control your environment. Hello, OCD? Or if you were made to feel guilty for the tiniest mistakes, you might carry a guilt complex. And now every time something goes wrong, you obsess that it's your fault. Complexes are like programs running in the background of your mind. Most of the time you don't notice them, but they influence a lot of your behavior. When an OCD trigger hits, it's like one of these programs has taken over your operating system. Suddenly, rational you is sidelined, and complex-driven you is in charge. Now, let's talk about why OCD cycles are so hard to break. Jung had this idea of compensation, that the unconscious mind balances out the conscious mind. If you're too rigidly one way consciously, your unconscious will push you the other way. Imagine you're obsessed, ironically, with being a good person, always polite, never angry, always in control. That's your conscious stance. Your unconscious might compensate by generating intrusive, violent images or savage self-criticism. It's like a seesaw. Lean too far to one side, the other side pops up. OCD can be your psyche's way of balancing the equation. You try to be perfectly clean. Your mind bombards you with dirt. You try to be perfectly kind. Your mind throws mean thoughts at you. It's twisted, but it's a form of balance. Your psyche saying, embrace the full range of life, or I'll force you to look at it. And because you don't understand that, you take those thoughts at face value. You panic. You think having a horrible thought means you're a horrible person. You think if you don't do the ritual, something terrible will happen. That misunderstanding keeps the OCD cycle going. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Part of you finds OCD useful. Wait, what? Useful? Hear me out. OCD gives you something to do, a problem to solve, so you don't have to face some other, scarier problem. It's a distraction, a very painful coping mechanism. It's easier, in a way, to spend 2 hours checking locks and arranging things than it is to, say, confront the fact that you feel unlovable or that you're furious at someone you shouldn't be angry with. OCD becomes a twisted escape hatch. I'm not blaming you. This is all deep unconscious stuff. No one wakes up and says, today I'll distract myself with crippling anxiety. No, your mind does this behind the scenes. It's like a computer running a program you didn't consciously install. But now that we're onto it, we can do something about it. Let's look at some examples, because I want this to hit home. Say you have contamination OCD. You washed your hands until they're raw. Sure, on the surface you're afraid of germs. But what else might being contaminated mean to you? Do you carry a deep feeling of being dirty or shameful in some way? Often, folks with this OCD have some buried shame or fear of imperfection that they haven't dealt with. The germs are just a stand-in. Or consider someone who has to check 20 times that they didn't run someone over while driving. That person likely has zero intention of ever harming anyone. So why the obsession? Maybe deep down, they have rage or resentment that they never express. So the psyche flips it into over-concern. Oh my God, what if I hurt someone? It's overkill, literally, to keep them from seeing they're angry at all. These are just possibilities. Everyone's story is different. But the point is, whatever your OCD fixates on, ask yourself, could this be symbolizing something deeper? Jung believed symptoms have meaning. Your OCD is not just a random glitch, it's a coded message. Sometimes the message is super inconvenient. It's like those dreams where you're naked in public, embarrassing messages from your psyche about vulnerability. OCD is like a waking nightmare that forces you to face something. The tragedy is, most people with OCD never decode the message. They just keep dancing to OCD's tune out of sheer terror. Let's zoom out for a second. OCD might feel like a very modern problem. Hand sanitizer and Instagram didn't exist in Jung's time, but the pattern is ancient. Human beings have always had weird obsessions and compulsions. We just gave it a name and a diagnostic code recently. In ancient myths and stories, you see hints of OCD-like struggles. Think of Narcissus, the guy so fixated on his own reflection that he wasted away. That's like being trapped in your own head, over-analyzing yourself, stuck in an ego loop. Sound familiar when you're deep in an obsessive spiral? Then there's Sisyphus, doomed to push a boulder up a hill, only to have it roll back down every time. Talk about a perfect metaphor for compulsions. You do the thing to ease your anxiety, push the rock up. It falls back down into doubt, and you do it again. Endless, pointless, exhausting. We can even find a lesson in the story of Jonah and the whale. Jonah ran from a task he was given, basically his calling, and got himself swallowed by a giant fish until he was ready to face what he was avoiding. OCD can feel like being in the belly of a beast, isolated and stuck, because you're avoiding something crucial in your life. The moment Jonah said, "Okay, I'll do it," the whale spit him out. There's a hint for us in that story. These archetypal tales stick around because they echo what we live internally. You might not be literally pushing a boulder or inside a whale, but on the inside, part of you is. Part of you is on an endless loop until something changes. Let's talk about our modern world for a minute. Modern life is like gasoline on the fire of anxiety and OCD. Everything's uncertain and changing fast. We have 24/7 news telling us every possible disaster happening everywhere. No wonder our threat alarms are cranked up. Social media doesn't help either. You see curated perfection all day. Everyone else looks like they have it together. They don't, but that's what it looks like. If you have any perfectionistic streak, that can go into overdrive. Suddenly you're obsessing that you're not good enough, comparing yourself endlessly, maybe even compulsively checking how many likes you got, as if that measures your worth. And technology has made OCD-style behaviors so easy to slip into. Think about it. You feel a pang of anxiety, and what do? You pull out your phone and scroll, or you Google your symptoms for the 14th time, or you check messages obsessively. These are socially accepted compulsions. They soothe us for a hot second, then we need to do them again. So yeah, our era gives OCD a lot to work with, but I want to stress something. The real cause of OCD isn't out there in the world, it's inside. Those outside things are triggers, not the root, alright? So far we've painted a pretty stark picture of OCD being this monster fed by your hidden fears and modern stressors. But here's the hopeful part. If your mind created this problem as a way to cope or send a message, you can rewire that. You can end OCD's grip by doing the one thing it doesn't want you to do. Stop running from your shadow. Turn around and face those uncomfortable feelings and thoughts. Scary? Hell yeah. Necessary? Absolutely. The next time an intrusive thought screams for attention, try something different. Instead of arguing with it or performing the usual ritual, just pause. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself, this is my mind trying to tell me something. What's the real fear here? You might discover that the real fear isn't the surface one. Maybe the real fear is, I'm not in control, or I might be a bad person deep down, or I'll be abandoned if I'm not perfect. These are heavy, existential fears. OCD conveniently steers you away from them by focusing on petty specifics like doorknobs and hand washes. But now, you're wise to the game. When you identify that big fear, you can start working on it directly. This might mean acknowledging pain you've ignored, like, yes, I have anger or sadness or trauma, and I need to deal with it. Here's where real healing happens. You might talk to a therapist about those deeper issues, or journal about them, or just have a good cry and let yourself feel what you feel. That releases some of the pressure that's been driving the OCD. And guess what? As you do that, OCD starts losing its purpose. If OCD was guarding a gate, you're now opening that gate willingly. The guard's job is kinda over. The scary monster behind the gate turns out to be more of a scared child or a wounded part of you that actually needs love, not fear. Jung would call what you're doing individuation, essentially becoming whole by integrating the broken off pieces of yourself. Fancy word, simple idea. You're making friends with your shadow, healing your complexes, and allowing your conscious and unconscious to actually work together instead of wrestling all the time. Individuation is not a quick afternoon hike. It's an epic journey. It's basically the hero's journey, but the dragon is inside you. The treasure you're after is a sense of peace and authenticity in your own skin. On this journey, you go through fear and fire. You have to slay some illusions, like the idea that you must be perfect, or that you can control everything, or that having a crazy thought makes you a crazy person. Those beliefs have to die for you to be free, and when they do, it feels like relief. People who come out the other side often say the same thing. The things that used to paralyze them now seem smaller. Not gone completely maybe, but manageable. The dragon isn't completely vanquished, but it's shrunk down to the size of a lizard that you can flick off your shoulder. Imagine waking up and not immediately bracing for battle. You get up and you just live. You have your morning coffee without that knot in your stomach. You leave the house once, no turning back to recheck anything. You get on with your day. That life isn't a fantasy. It's possible. I'm not selling you a fairy tale here. This takes work and courage, and probably some help from others. Going at OCD alone can be really tough. Therapy, especially Jungian or other depth psychology, or even good old cognitive behavioral therapy, can provide a safe space to do this work. There's no shame in needing support. We all do. But in the end, no one can confront your shadow for you. That's on you. The good news is, by even listening this far, you're already facing it. You're gathering knowledge as your sword and insight as your shield. You're preparing for the fight, and it is a fight. Make no mistake. A fight against fear, against false beliefs, against the inertia of old habits. But you're not fighting yourself. You're fighting for yourself, for your life, your freedom, your peace of mind. So here we are. Why does your OCD exist? To show you what you've been avoiding and to push you to grow. And how do you end it? By heeding that call, facing the darkness, healing what's hurt, and reclaiming your life from the inside out. The moment you do that, OCD loses its grip. It's not overnight. It's one hard-earned step at a time. But it's the path to finally coming home to yourself. And if this message hit home for you, and if you're still here, I'm guessing it did, then consider tapping that like button. That way, more people who need this can find it too. Stick around, because you're not alone, and our journey's just beginning. I'm walking it too, and I'd love to have you with me. You've got this.